So let's just jump right in. What if I told you there's a food system you can build in your own backyard that needs almost zero input, produces more protein than a cattle ranch, and could literally feed your family for decades? And get this, it's not some newfangled tech, it's a secret that's been around for 2,400 years.
Way back in 475 BC, a Chinese fish farmer named Fan Li made this absolutely incredible claim. He wrote down a method so efficient it was basically a self-running protein factory. I mean, can you imagine the confidence it took to say something like that over 2,000 years ago? This wasn't a guess. He had a system that just worked.
And that really brings us to the big question, the one we're going to unpack here. If this system is so amazing, and if it's fed more people throughout history than any other protein system, why have most of us never, ever heard of it? Well, it turns out that silence wasn't an accident.
So, to understand why this knowledge kind of vanished, we first have to go back and see where it came from. This isn't some modern invention. This is ancient wisdom, perfected over thousands of years and then rediscovered.
The history here is just fascinating. It all starts way back around 3,500 BC, with farmers just noticing fish getting trapped in pools after floods and thinking, maybe we can work with this. By the Shang Dynasty, they're actively managing these things they called garden ponds. But the huge leap forward, the real game changer, came from this bizarre royal ban in the 7th century. We'll get back to that in a second. By the time Marco Polo and other travelers showed up in the 1200s, these self-feeding ponds were just a normal part of life all across China.
All right, let's talk about that pivotal moment. Because, it's pretty wild that one of the greatest innovations in food production happened entirely by accident, all thanks to a paranoid emperor.
So here's the deal. During the Tang Dynasty, the emperor's family name was Li. Well, the Mandarin word for the common carp, which was the main food fish at the time, is Li Yu. It sounded exactly the same. So out of respect, or maybe just superstition, the emperor banned anyone from farming or even eating the common carp. Just like that, their #1 protein source for over 1,000 years was off the menu.
And this is a perfect example of how a crisis can spark genius. Before the ban, farming was simple. One pond, one kind of fish. It was monoculture. But with the carp gone, farmers were forced to get creative. They started mixing different species together. Grass carp that ate weeds on the surface, silver carp that ate algae in the middle, and mud carp that ate stuff on the bottom. Without even realizing it, they created the world's first true polyculture system, where different species work together to eliminate waste and just supercharge the pond's productivity.
Okay, so if this system was perfected over centuries and was proven to be so incredibly efficient, why didn't it take off everywhere else? Why didn't it come to America? Why do we go all in on cattle and chickens when this self-managing system was right there?
Well, the answer starts to become really clear when you just look at the raw numbers. Back in the 1960s, some researchers at Auburn University decided to test these ancient Chinese methods, and the results were just stunning. Look at this chart. In a tiny little backyard pond, a space that's just a fraction of the size, they produced almost double the protein of a cattle pasture with pretty much zero inputs. The data was right there. You couldn't argue with it.
So if the results were so good, why did this amazing technology just fizzle out? The reason, in a nutshell, is this number: $200 billion. That's the annual value of the U.S. industrial meat system. A system like that has zero, and I mean zero, financial incentive to promote a method where you stop buying their stuff. The second you build a productive pond, you've opted out. The knowledge wasn't banned by some law, it was just quietly buried by economics.
But here's the good news. The knowledge survived. So now, let's get into the how. How does this thing actually work? Because the pond isn't just a hole with fish in it. It's a 4-part biological engine, and every single part has a critical job to do.
These are your 4 key players: the ducks, the plants, the fish, and the bacteria. When you get these 4 working together in harmony, you're not really a farmer anymore. You're more like a conductor, just guiding this living, self-regulating system.
First up, the ducks. Think of them as the managers of the whole operation. As they paddle around, they're stirring up nutrients from the bottom. Their poop is liquid nitrogen fertilizer, kick-starting the whole food chain. They eat bugs. And on top of all that, a tiny flock of just 3 to 5 ducks can give you over 800 eggs a year. They're a fertilizer factory and an egg machine, all rolled into one.
Next up, the plants. And they are literally the pond's kidneys and lungs. You've got cattails that are amazing filters, just sucking up any excess waste.
You've got underwater plants like hornwort that are pumping oxygen into the water for the fish. And then you have floating plants like duckweed, which grows so fast that it becomes a self-replenishing, all-you-can-eat buffet for the ducks.
And of course, the main event, the fish. This is your primary protein harvest. You've got some great choices here. You could use something like bluegill, which are awesome because they just make more of themselves, or you could go with channel catfish, which get nice and big really fast. And in warmer climates where it's legal, tilapia are like magic. They can reach a full pound in just 5 or 6 months.
And last but definitely not least, we have to talk about the invisible workforce, the beneficial bacteria. These microscopic powerhouses do the single most important job. They take the toxic ammonia from fish waste and turn it into nitrates, which is the perfect food for plants. This process, the nitrogen cycle, is the absolute backbone of the whole system. It's what makes it a closed-loop, self-cleaning ecosystem.
Okay, so we get the biology now. We see how all the pieces fit together. So let's make this real. How do you actually build one of these things? I promise you it's way, way easier than you think.
First question everybody asks, what's this going to cost me? You can set up a whole family-scale protein system like this for somewhere between $400 and $600. That's for everything, the liner, the fish, the ducks, the plants, the whole shebang. Now think about what you'd spend on meat and eggs at the store in just 1 year. The investment is tiny.
And the process itself? Super straightforward. You pick a low spot in your yard, you dig a hole, you seal it, you fill it with water. But step 5 is the most important part of all. You have to introduce life in stages. You put the plants in first and let them get established, then a month later you add the ducks, and a month after that you add the fish. You have to give the ecosystem time to wake up and get balanced.
And here's a little roadmap of what that first year is going to look like. For the first few months, honestly, your main job is just to watch. You might top off the water if it gets low. That's about it. By about month 6, you'll start getting eggs from your ducks every single day. And by the end of that first year, your first batch of fish will be big enough to start harvesting. The system just finds its own rhythm.
But look, this project is about so much more than just food. When you build one of these, you're tapping into a really powerful idea, a philosophy of true self-reliance and real sustainability.
And this quote, for me, really gets to the heart of the whole thing. This isn't just a backyard pond. It's a statement. In a world with supply chains that are getting more and more fragile, you've built something that only depends on sunlight, water, and life itself. You've built a quiet, powerful little piece of independence.
Fenley figured this out 2,400 years ago. The knowledge, the blueprint, it's always been there, just waiting for us to pick it back up. So the pond is waiting. The only real question is, what will you choose?